Hi, everybody. This is day 1015 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. Let me make sure that I'm on and everything's working because um, we have been, I don't know, having some glitches. Okay, it looks like I'm on. All right, thank you, everyone. So, 1015 days today since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. And as you know, the Army, his command, never contacted us. Okay, that's really fishy because 36 days went by. 36 days we hadn't heard from our son, and we hadn't heard from the unit. We hadn't heard from the Army. And no military would allow that many days to go by without an investigation into a missing soldier. Okay. So what Jay Paulin was saying, that they really don't look for AWOL soldiers, was not right. There is not entirely right. No. There is protocols that have to be followed. And they weren't. They weren't at all. And it's very easy. And the command has a duty, has an obligation to care for the soldiers. They are, their nickname is GI, government issue. They are an investment of the American people. They are our most valuable assets. They are our volunteer sons and daughters. And absolutely, they investigate every missing soldier, every missing service member. And we were not contacted, and it's very easy. They could get the fugitive apprehension group to our house very, very quickly when they wanted to. They could easily have gotten people over to our house to tell us that our son was missing. They could have easily, less than a minute, they could have called Rob's number and let us know that our son was missing. So I was, oh man, it was such a busy time because of COVID. Two of our son-in-laws' jobs, one lost his job absolutely day one because he was doing sushi. And, he lost his job day one. So, I remember going around our neighborhood with our grandson, James, who's so big now. He was little, and he had one of those Strider bikes, and I'd go around and I would be just thanking God, praying to God that Richard was in the military, that he had a job, and, just praying for him, but thanking him that he had a job, that we didn't have to worry. And all along, he was brutally murdered and cut asunder by Jack the Ripper. And the military wasn't even contacting us, not following their SOP, not following decency, not following their obligations to their service members. It was, when you think back at it, and you have to now, with the new information of the places that we have through leaks, that we are told that Richard's partial and fragmented remains were found, and they were positively identified through DNA and dental records. Um, when you have that, and you have also these autopsy reports with autopsy numbers, and we're not getting any denial about them, and we even have this death certificate. Now, the death certificate, um, that's that's ongoing. That's ongoing too. We've gotten some responses back, and there's a lot of questions that we have um, with this doctor Ortiz. Uh, so we don't know. So we don't know. We know that we don't trust our agencies, and we need definitely a new investigation, since Richard's investigation has been botched, and they were in smear campaign mode when they brought Richard back on, because you have to remember they never contacted us. Then they told us that Richard was a deserter and threw us out. And we did get the fugitive apprehension unit to our house. They had to have a warrant for that. Um, and then, not for us, but for Richard. And if Richard's remains were already discovered, and why are they doing that? See, there's a lot of questions that have to be answered through all of that, because, well, we're in the process. And I really am not at liberty to tell everybody what is going on with the senior special agent there at Quantico that is preparing, that will bring a team to Fort Bliss. It has to be. So this is because the investigation is botched, and they need a new investigation. And they need to look into so many irregularities, especially Tavita Nusa and Leilani Hart. Especially that, because yesterday, if you haven't watched my live stream from yesterday, I don't know how I did that. That's just the hand of God there. And I never really listened to my live streams, but early this morning, I was watering my garden, and somehow it came on, and I started listening to it, and I was like, wow, this is a really good live stream. Wow. And I hope that everyone shares it. It's 1014, and it really it puts so many puzzle pieces together with the smear campaign on Richard, to the retaliation, the unbelievable, wicked, constant, severe retaliation that he received for being a whistleblower, him being illegally exposed as a whistleblower, because his file was leaked by Tavita Nusa to Leilani Hart, and Leilani Hart using the contents of Richard's whistleblowing file to fortify her CID, her FBI. It was so severe what she was claiming that it made it to an FBI file, and we have those numbers. And in that information, how much of that information is from Richard's file, right? Because then that's motive for a murder of Richard. And why would it be a murder? Because in that CID file that Leilani Hart notarized. She notarized it. She's saying, this is my words. This is my signature. These are my words. And I'm saying that a 7-year-old was being raped in my home, in my master bedroom, by several members of my family, and my son, who is in uniform, First Lieutenant Dallas Hart, is engaged in an incestuous relationship with his brother, and more, y'all, and more, because of the pornography. Oh yes, pornography in my home, constantly, continually, for long periods of time in my home. I hope I said that right, but in my home, for long periods of time, this pornography. And it's how much of that is from Richard's information? How much more is in there from Richard's information? And did that make, because we know that those claims were also against James Hart, not just Dallas Hart. And James Hart, when I talked to him, this is before I even knew that the CID, he's the one that told us that his wife, Leilani Hart, had put in a complaint to the CID and the FBI, and that he had just been cleared of that. But was Dallas Hart, we didn't know that he was implicated, and that, was he cleared? And if that's the case, why isn't Leilani Hart arrested for making such claims? It's, nothing is following the SOP, the standard operating procedure here, right? So we would like to know that, because that creates motive for the murder of our son. And then that would mean that those people would have a reason to murder Richard. And that's very important to investigate. But with the botched investigation, that hasn't been investigated. And so we are giving the CID and Quantico, we've been made the chief investigator, so we have given them this information, our irregularities, including Anthony Swafford. I think is a nice guy, but he got those hypnosis problems in his eyes. He allowed the society, he allowed the culture of society to influence him and cloud his judgment, because as a military police, your duty is to find that missing soldier. It's not to judge his character, right? You find that missing soldier. And he allowed the senior leader on the guard mount to hypnotize him, to cloud his judgment, to make him say, Richard's not even worth finding. He's not worth my time. But in this country, we're innocent until proven guilty. And Richard is a yellow Interpol. And I want to say to Anthony Swafford, Richard is a yellow Interpol. He's not a red Interpol. He's a yellow Interpol. And that's very, very important, because after 80 subpoenas and warrants, Richard is a yellow Interpol. That means that he is deemed missing by Interpol, but not a criminal in any way. Because if he had one allegation of a crime that he would be wanted for, he would be a red Interpol. But that's not the case. So, I'd like to tell Anthony Swafford so that as his career progresses in law enforcement, he won't make that mistake again. All of our sons and daughters, all of the people in this country, the defense of the Constitution, the land, and the people is all about you're innocent until proven guilty. And he should absolutely not have allowed the senior leader to stand on the guard mount and to smear Richard, to hypnotize and cloud the minds and the judgments of the military police there at Fort Bliss into not even trying to find Richard. But Anthony Swafford took it a step further. He went on to his social media, and those that were trying to help us find Richard, he attempted to dissuade them to even helping us. And then when we got in contact with him, he treated us like we also were of bad character. He made a huge mistake. And I know he's young, but I think he can redeem himself in this by coming forward and telling us who that senior leader is that stood on the guard mount conducting an unjust smear campaign on a missing soldier. And I don't even believe it was a missing soldier. I think that that senior leader was standing on the guard mount conducting a smear campaign on a murdered soldier. And they knew he was murdered. And it was a cover-up. It was an alibi. He was in cover-up alibi mode. That's what I believe. And then while we were there on October 26th, we can't forget Nadal Baim, who is the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado. And this is so important. It's so important. I don't think they're guilty of anything. I hope they're not guilty of anything except for doing a good deed. And that is not keeping it a secret that they found Richard's remains, meaning the FBI found Richard's remains. And, you know, he wasn't totally aware of what he was doing because he goes, shh, shh, keep it a secret, keep it a secret. But he just couldn't keep it a secret. And I'm very grateful for him for that. He made it very clear that it was supposed to be kept a secret. Which, thank you. Thank you. It's 11 o'clock. The bell tolls for exactly that. That why would the CID and the FBI and the military command and the DOJ and the DOD want to keep the fact that Richard's remains were found and identified a secret? And so I think that that was a real blessing, because we called the State Department there in Juarez, and he confirmed, the special agent over there confirmed that the FBI indeed were looking for Richard's remains in Juarez, Mexico, which makes this international. Now, according to Delirious and her source, the remains, the fragmented remains, were in uniform. So Richard was in uniform. And she maintains that still to today. And that's very important too, because not only is this international, but that a U.S. soldier was murdered, brutally murdered and cut asunder and divided, and buried in multiple locations. Yeah. That sidetracked me a little bit, y'all. I lost my train of thought. Not only was Richard brutally murdered, retaliated against before that, um, it was international, right? But he was in uniform, and the uniform makes it even more severe. No wonder the military, something is going on. I'll talk about it now. Something is going on because we have just gotten reports that 2 suicides just happened on Fort Bliss, just a couple days apart from each other. 2 suicides. And I'm looking in the news and there's nothing in the news. Why isn't there anything in the news? Did those suicides not happen? But I'm getting reports that they did. And they're from good sources. And why am I saying this? Because something is going on. Even if this might not be the case, but I think it is. I think in the last couple of days there have been 2 suicides on Fort Bliss. I believe the source. Now you can check me. Maybe I'll have to eat crow, but I'm believing my source at this point. And what this is showing is there is a very evil collusion between the United States military and the media. The media should be the oversight for the military. They should not help the military cover up and also be protecting its brand. So I don't know what's going on, but it is not good with the media, and it needs to stop, because with Richard's case, absolutely the media should be covering this. Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind, and it's not because I'm the mother. It's because this case is just that big. It is so big. If it's international case, if it's about a murder, a vicious murder, a Jack the Ripper murder of a United States active duty soldier in uniform, that's a big deal. If it's the brutal murder, Jack the Ripper murder of a soldier in uniform in Mexico that was a whistleblower for child sexual assault, also whistleblowing that, and we maintain this. That is XO, because I believe our witnesses, and our witnesses say that First Lieutenant Dallas Hart was in Delta Battery 143. And if he was engaging in a incestual relationship with his brother, and Richard reported that, if Richard reported the rape of the child, if Richard reported other things going on in the orderly room, illegal activities in the orderly room, the tampering with paperwork and things like that, because he was the guidon bearer, and the guidon bearer does get a privilege to be in there, even though he was saying that he had to look for the guidon. Well, when he was looking for the guidon, what else did he find when he had to be looking for the guidon? Because they had no esprit de corps in that unit, because they didn't have a love for their country, a love for their unit, a love for their soldiers, and also a duty to and an obligation to care for their soldiers. They didn't even honor that. And you had Captain Park, Captain David Park, a West Pointer, who does not know respect, does not know it. You have First Sergeant Jay Pollan, who is absolutely one of the suspects to do injury, absolute injury to Richard. And I'm just wondering what his motive, what was going on in that office with First Lieutenant Hart, with Jay Pollan, with David Park. What was going on in that office? And how are they connected to Major General Clem Coward? And how are they connected to Lieutenant Colonel Michael Roddick? And, why is First Lieutenant Micah Brown? And what about SFC Gabriel Arona doing this lockstepping, doing this shoulder rubbing with absolute suspects and up to no good unit? And now we have reports that 2 more soldiers committed suicide. I mean, Rob was saying that when he joined the military, and it was a long time ago, the early 1970s, they didn't have the suicides. They didn't have the rapes. They didn't have the drug overdoses. Y'all, we know that they had drugs and stuff, sure. But they didn't have co-ed barracks. They had respect for women. They protected women. They didn't groom women to be prostitutes or sluts or to take body count. And if Fort Bliss is having to take body count monthly of suicides and the media is not covering that, what's going on with the media? Where is El Paso Matters? Where is KTEP? Where is the media covering what's going on, having some oversight of? When are we going to realize that oversight is a good thing and that consequences are a good thing because it restrains evil, because it saves lives and it prevents the sexual assaults and the sexual harassments and the racketeering and the bullying and everything else? When are we going to realize it's a good thing and require that our media becomes a real media again? So that's a really big deal because we have Nadal Baim saying that he's with the FBI. And he's also the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd ATCOM, Richard's command. And he's saying that he's with the FBI and that they found Richard's remains in Juarez. That would be consistent with the Mexican autopsy report that is for October of 2020. And Nadal walked into the Dollar General on the 26th of October. So that absolutely everything is coming together. Everything, the big thing is we're looking, we have to be the investigator. We have to look at everything because we want to know where Richard is, right? And even though I don't know what all they did with the body parts, and I don't know where they're keeping the body parts. But I have to be hopeful, and I have to think that maybe we will get something back. Today, the city representative Joe Molinar, and I'm trying to read it to make sure. Um, Matt, this is really interesting. I should play it. Okay, so here it is. Okay, so this is representative for the I think the largest district in Texas, Gonzalez, I believe that's his name, and then this is um, city representative Molinar, and this right here is Delaris, and Delaris, she is has been with us since February, I believe, of 2021. Um, I believe so. And she gave us a lead. She went to the CID and the FBI that Richard was murdered in Juarez and his remains, partial remains, were there. She told us that. And that he was in uniform. She got this leak. She has a lot of history there in El Paso and with her jobs. And it's really worth listening to these few minutes of her going to this town hall meeting or a meeting in a little restaurant or um, yeah, a little restaurant, and talking about Richard Halliday. I think it's important. So let's listen for a few seconds. I'll put this on.
Respected you before, and I respected you more whenever you stood up to the Republican Party and you actually spoke on behalf of your constituents.
Sure.
Okay. So two things. I went to your office a couple of months ago, and I went with Save Our Service Members, which is it's a veteran organization.
Yes.
We spoke with a lot of representatives and lip service. Okay. Not your fault, but so second, I am a former Border Patrol agent, 21 years on the line.
Okay, so she's saying that she's a former border police.
Working on the line.
Sure.
And Chief Ortiz
Yeah.
is not telling you everything about how they're spending the money.
Sure.
I filed a complaint against Border Patrol
Sure.
regarding waste, fraud, and
Okay, so she's talking about the border that
thing,
she put in a fraud, waste, and abuse report because of what she experienced there, and now I moved it ahead a little bit.
Officer, you're Navy, I'm Army.
Yeah.
I'm joint multinational.
Yeah.
Okay, retired, honorably retired, and I have a soldier that's missing.
She's telling him that she's a retired flag officer. I believe it's the National Guard in the Army, and so she has this flag off. Let's see. Let me listen to this. Make sure I tell it to you right.
I am a field grade officer. You're Navy.
Field
I'm
grade
Army.
officer.
I'm joint multinational.
Yeah, field grade
okay?
officer, not a flag officer.
Retired.
A field grade officer. I believe a lieutenant colonel. She was a lieutenant colonel in the Army.
He was murdered back in July 2020. Okay? And this is him right here. Okay? I have spoken with your office in Washington, D.C., and they were going to create a team.
And she was very bold here because she said to him he was murdered back in July of 2020. You know, according to these leaks that we have, and we're trying to get additional information to piece all this together because we're not getting cooperation from the authorities. We're not getting cooperation from Bill Hicks. We're not getting cooperation from Gregory McDonald. I don't even know what he looks like. I think someone sent me a picture. I don't know if it's really him. Also, we're not getting cooperation from Jaime Esparza. We're not, Stephen, um, we're not getting the help that we need from the military. We're not getting that cooperation, and except from the Quantico CID that came forward, because uh, people have questions now. They're starting to piece things together that if this could happen to Richard, this can happen. This is happening more, and of course we know it's happening more because of Vanessa Guillen being bludgeoned to death with a hammer in the arms room, by her own unit and member, and then somehow her body was contorted to fit into a pelican case. Rob is very curious how that happened. And then her remains were taken out by the Leon River, and they cut her remains in pieces. Another Jack the Ripper story. And they burned it, and they dug a foxhole, and they put her remains in the foxhole and put lime on it. The reason why they put lime, this is what I've learned now, is so that animals cannot smell it. But I don't think they did a good job, because they put lime on her, they put concrete, they put the dirt on, and even with all of that trouble, animals still were digging around this most sophisticated grave of a crime scene. That's what Tim Miller called Vanessa Guillen's grave. And don't forget Enrique. Enrique's head came ashore, and also Austin Hawke. Austin Hawke was brutally murdered in his barracks. And, Gregory Morales was found when looking for Vanessa Guillen. And then Richard went missing. And we have reports that right away, before the end of July 2020 and beginning of August 2020, partial remains were found and identified. So that Delirious is saying this. She also sees all their irregularities and is confident in the leaks that we have, because she also has the sources about Richard being murdered in Juarez, Mexico, and his remains partially being left there and then partially being taken to other places. So let's listen more how she's talking to Representative.
To be able to assist on looking, into what's happening to these veterans, because I'm a veteran myself. Yeah. I went to Congresswoman Escobar back in January 2021.
Oh, she's talking about Escobar now.
There's a lot of information that I knew that the regular citizens didn't know. Yeah. They didn't do anything. Sure. Moving forward, we're 2020.
Yes. So she did tell me that she approached and contacted even Veronica Escobar, Vanity Fair Veronica Escobar. Can't get away from those games, can't get away from the entertainment, can't get away from the vanity of the mirror long enough to listen to Delirious and what she knows about this case. And you're talking about a missing soldier. I've had my ears wide open from the very beginning to anyone, everyone that wants that says they know something about Richard. And even these phone calls and phone messages that I've gotten. And I've listened and analyzed all of that with my husband, with Team Find Richard Halliday, daily, to see crumb by crumb what happened to Richard, to lead us to that conclusion. so that we will have some conclusion in this terrible situation. Just, you can't even, it is like a nightmare situation that we have been in. So Veronica Escobar, Vanity Fair Veronica Escobar, wouldn't even want to listen to what Dolores had to say. That's what she's saying here. I know it's kind of quiet, so let's continue.
3 years after this soldier was murdered.
Yeah.
And the mother is looking for answers.
Yeah.
And
so that's what you're asking for?
Yes.
Okay.
So I want you to commit to every single veteran that's here to at least give the family some answers.
Sure. So this sounds like you're pushing for Joe.
I had with Joe a couple of weeks ago, so he knows about it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. I would say you bring up two very good points. And one, I sit on the Appropriations Committee, and one of the things that this is only my third year in office, and one of the things that I've done a little different than this year than the other years, we always talk about the money that we're providing. I just gave you the example of the $700 million for this clinic, and it's always these wonderful things, right? It's all you want. But there's also programs that need to go away. There's also line items that are waste in this area. In all departments. So one of the things that we did this year is we went line by line and we said, why does this exist? That needs to go away. How does that exist? I don't believe in giving a blank check to anyone and thinking, oh, mission accomplished. Oh, you don't solve a problem by throwing more money at a problem. You don't. Does money help? Yes, if it's put towards the right areas. So I think that's where it's so important. So I agree with you. I think there is waste in every single aspect of department of the government. It's finding out what works and what doesn't work. Don't take money from the areas that work and expect things to get better. So I think that's important. As far as the soldiers aspect of, thank you for bringing it up. We will absolutely look into it. You're seeing more and more of this happening, and it's scary. It's a scary time. I've got a 21-year-old daughter that wants to join the military. She's going to be looking at the Air Force. But, as a parent, you're giving your child to the U.S. government to take care of, to make sure that they are safe going forward. And there's all these things. I don't know the details of it, too. The other thing, you can't assume, you can't dive into a situation half-cocked. You got to know all the facts. You got to know all the details. And it's not my job to find the facts. It's my job to make sure somebody else finds the facts and somebody else shares that information. Does everybody remember Vanessa Guillen? That case in particular hit really hard for me. Once again, my daughter's the same age, and some of the issues that were happening at that base keep happening over and over and over again. So, like I said, you get pulled in a lot of different directions. But ensuring that our kids are protected and ensuring that if something does go wrong, that the parents find out find out the facts is absolutely right. We'll take that back. I'm happy to reach out to the Secretary of the Army or the I'm happy to reach out to them and figure out what's more details. Let me take one step further, and I want to give Joe an opportunity. You don't have to mention this, but you want to mention something else. I want to take it one step further. This job is amazing. I get to meet so many people. I get to do so many things. As a member of Congress, you literally can do as much or as little as you want to. And I'm sure you've seen plenty of members that do very little. Okay? I try to be one of those members that do a lot in all these different areas. And so this area, I can tell you, it's very sensitive to me. So I haven't publicly said this yet, but Vanessa Guillen's sister, Lupe, is going to be coming on board our team as helping us in the summer. And so why do I mention that? I mention that to go, you have to have people around you that it is their passion to run these things to ground. You can't just give, it's, every staffer is professional and you go, hey, I want you to work on this veteran case. But I guarantee you, Joe, as a Marine veteran, is going to be more sensitive than helping a Marine veteran. It's just a natural kind of thing. So what I've tried to do is add people on the team, whether it's temporary or permanent, that truly believe it. That they wake up in the morning, they're just as passionate about it as you are. I want to give Joe just an opportunity to talk about veterans or
Yes,
whatever you want to talk
thank you
about.
very much, Congressman. So,
Okay, so that was U.S. Representative Tony Gonzalez, and he has one of the largest districts. And we have reached out to him. It was a while back. We have reached out more than once. And, you know, it's like everybody is wanting to do hands off, right? Hands off on this soldier, on Richard Halliday. And, you know, I just wonder why. Why? So I'm happy that he said that he was going to reach out to the Secretary of the Army. And the Secretary of the Army, Christine Wormuth, who I believe should be arrested for the way that she handled herself and her situation with Senator Ted Cruz, that she just kind of flipped him off. You know, maybe I'm not so popular with her. I understand. But she didn't do her job. She didn't answer those questions. Why is she not answering the questions? And why is the media giving her a free pass on flipping off a sitting senator? She is Senator Cruz's subordinate. And that's not in a mean way. But she's 23 ranks lower than he is. He's an elected sitting senator. That has weight. And she was allowed and got away with it to flip him off. And when she flips him off, she flips off every one of his constituents. And I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that, because if she can do that to us in this case and not answer the questions, then how many more people is she doing that to? And she's supposed to defend the Constitution, which means our government system. She can't just make herself a higher degree than a sitting senator because she feels like it, or she thinks she is, because she's not. She's his subordinate. And she should have clicked her heels together. It's the way we have order, how we have oversight. Now we know why we have so many of our service members dying of suicide. Now we know why we have so many of them dying with overdoses. Now we know why we have them being murdered and not being investigated properly, having botched investigation. Now we know why. Now we know why we have no esprit de corps. No esprit de corps. Because our own Secretary of the Army has no concept of the esprit de corps. The honor for the ranks, the honor for the uniform, the honor. Who is she? And why is General McConville like her lapdog? And why is the media giving her a free pass? And now you have Representative Tony Gonzalez, right? Saying that he's going to reach out to her. Reach out to the Secretary of the Army. We need to pray, y'all. We need to pray. Gosh. And so I want to write him a letter. Because and I hope that, this is the Secretary of the Army flipped off a sitting senator. Is she going to flip off Tony Gonzalez? If Tony Gonzalez wants to inquire with the Secretary of the Army on Richard Halliday and his botched investigation. How is she? Is she dependable? I we really need to write him. We really need to write him, and we did reach out to him, and maybe a soldier in the United States Army that maybe that's not his interest. Uh, uh, that was illegally exposed as a whistleblower, brutally, continuously, severely retaliated against, so much so that it escalated in his Jack the Ripper type murder. Maybe that's not what he's interested in helping. So we really do need to write him. Let's watch the rest of this. Now, this right here is the city of El Paso Representative Joe Molinar.
With the leaders about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the topic of private holiday did come up. I was a police officer for 28 years. I was a homicide detective for 5 years. My clearance rate on my personal homicide case was very high. So we did talk about it. I can tell you right now, even though I'm not on Fort Bliss,
do you hear what he's saying? He's saying the topic of Richard came up, and I have a lot of experience investigating homicide. They know it's a homicide, y'all. And it's a Jack the Ripper. They know it. And Vanity Fair Veronica is allowing the Jack the Rippers to roam around her district, to wear a uniform, and for people to say thank you for your service and respect that uniform. And so you have wolves, Jack the Rippers, with the facade of a uniform. And if that continues, we have uniforms. You have Jack the Rippers in uniforms that have control over weapons, that become colonels, become generals, that have control over weapons, deadly weapons, and our most valuable assets, our sons and daughters. Now you understand why we've had crimes against humanity from our 44 four-star generals and admirals. And they were. Because of Vanity Fair Veronicas that don't want to do their job and their oversight. And it's even worse. It's getting worse than that. Because they weren't doing their job even with the child care at the emergency intake center. You had child care workers that weren't vetted. We have reports that up to 85% of them were not even vetted to take care of the children, and that it caused such a mess in child care in El Paso that it led to the lack of oversight of our military or even non-military contracted out home child care facilities or services. And then you have rapes of 7-year-old children in Leilani Hart's bedroom by multiple members of her family. And we haven't even discussed the 3-year-old. And you have, in Richard's case, then when people want to report it to the CID, when they want to report it to the CPS, then the pollution of of those wearing the uniform. You have to remember Tavita Nusa wore a uniform, a CID special agent uniform with a badge. And we're told that he was assigned to Richard's whistleblowing case, and that he's the one that illegally exposed Richard. So that's a wolf in sheep's clothing, someone that has power, and they're wearing the uniform. So there's motive there then. And let's hear what Mr. Joe Molinar has to say.
I'm not a military soldier. I'm not a CID investigator or anything like that. But there's things you can do as an investigator. One of the biggest things is cell phone data. When did that cell phone stop working? And I'm sure CIDs probably worked on it. We hope they did. Video cameras, video surveillance cameras, I'm sure they have them on Fort Bliss. What was happening, what was not happening. Obviously, he was probably in a vehicle, and a vehicle, whether it was his vehicle or not, if he goes south or comes back, that license plate, vehicle registration is recorded. All of those things are leads to make good things happen to try and find this young soldier. Okay, and most people are mistaken when they say, hey, we exhausted all leads. That's not the way you do it. Homicide. One lead, hopefully.
He's talking homicide.
3 more leads. So this needs to be properly investigated. And I know I mentioned all of that to you as well. And so, yes, I am a very proud U.S. Marine Corps veteran, Department of the Navy. I hold this gentleman here in highest esteem for his service, not only as a father, a husband, proud Navy veteran, but now he's serving us, the people here in Northeast El Paso and the halls of Congress.
Thanks, Joe. Yes, sir.
One of your committees, are you on the one that?
Okay, so so I thought that was really interesting, and I really thank Delaris for going there. I think she made them feel uncomfortable because we're at 1,015 days. 1,015 days. Yesterday, of course, last night, I really felt like that live stream said so much, and I hope that you share it. And I have it on the Facebook. I also have it on Telegram. I think I put it up on Twitter. I have to make sure that I put those links everywhere. And please share that, because it talks about how our children are in danger. It puts it all together and how it connects with Richard's case, with finding Richard, for getting justice for Richard. And so I think it's very, very important to share it. So I'll take questions now. You know, people have looked so uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable participants. And the meetings that we have went to, the house of the paralegal, they were very uncomfortable participants. And Captain Yoshida, very uncomfortable participant. Brigadier General Stewart, he was an uncomfortable participant. Even Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, he was very uncomfortable. He wouldn't do anything without that SJA. So they're very uncomfortable participants. Command Sergeant Major Jake Jakovitz, very, very uncomfortable participant. And, you know, and they need to be. They need to be, because this is a Jack the Ripper murder. And, you know, it's like, oh geez, I want to make a comparison, but I'm not going to make a comparison. But, you have to answer for that. And we have a $150,000 reward for information leading to finding Richard. But we also have the preservation of your character, the preservation of your legacy in the world. And do people care about that? I care about that. Do people care about their legacy anymore? I think it's super important. Super important. So, if someone cared enough for their legacy that even if they participated in the murder of our son and could get the lethal injection, I would say if they stepped forward and confessed and broke this case, I would work hard to just get them life imprisonment. I think I would. Because I think it would take a lot of guts, a lot of courage. And what I always would tell the kids, epistemological self-consciousness, that means that you would come to your senses. You would know yourself and know that you needed to do the right thing. So, yeah, I think I would. I think I would. Because the paperwork, we're moving forward, y'all. We are moving forward. We have those that are definitely our main suspects. And every day, we're getting closer and closer and collecting more and more information. And so it's really important to tell those out there just to have some mercy and grace, because this is not about vengeance. I've never been really like a person of vengeance. I want my son. I want my son. I want what's right. And I want to absolutely, I feel my duty as a Christian to establish justice. That's my duty. To glorify God every day, enjoy Him forever, and establish justice. What is right? What is true? What is honorable? Integrity, duty. That's our job. And we have to take whatever comes with that. Because that's what's going to build the future. That's what's going to protect our children. That is what is going to protect our elderly. That's what is going to progress everything that we do in this world, so that even the horses will wear gold bells around their necks saying, "Glory be to God," right? So that's really important. And I don't want how many children are in these botched child care facilities and home care services and are being raped in people's master bedrooms by multiple people. That needs to be ended and prosecuted and consequences given. And where are the arrests in all of this? Where are the arrests? So we'll write. I think we're going to write Mr. Molinar, Representative Molinar, and also Representative Gonzalez. I'm sure of it. Okay. Thank you, Danielle, for coming on. And, say a huge prayer for this situation at Fort Bliss. The last 2 to 3 days, There's been 2 suicides in the barracks. Pray that that isn't the case, that the leak is not, I don't know, just messing with me or something. But this is a trustworthy leak, and wow. Y'all, where is the media? Where is the media? The media, uh, they could inform us so that we could be the oversight, that the people could be the oversight, you see? And demand things that change so that our volunteer sons and daughters are not committing suicide like this. Rob, when Rob was in, he said, we didn't have these suicides. They're like becoming the norm now. And how many of these suicides are really homicides? And I know that that sounds so bad, but when you've been through 1,000 days of proof of a botched investigation, I think that it's not insane for me to say it. Thank you, Patty Joe. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Patty Joe, for saying that. How about protecting the parents who are investigating? Yeah, they haven't even contacted us, and we have written them and said, what about our protection? And we even wrote Quantico asking about our protection because, y'all, the truth is we've gotten threats. We've gotten threats lately with the release of this CID heart family information. And we wouldn't have released it, but it is information that Richard was reporting on. And we have put in a CPS FOIA and a CID FOIA, and we haven't gotten any response. Why don't they want to respond? Not even a redacted piece of paper. They just keep us, oh, well, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. So Rob even wrote today again. Thank you, Kat, praying for justice. Thank you. And so, we just really appreciate everyone coming on and sticking 1,015 days that we've been doing this. And I told you yesterday, my dad is buried at Anderson, and we want everyone to know our intentions are that we want our son. We want our son, and we want to give him we don't want him in some morgue somewhere or somewhere. I can't even think about it. I can't even talk about it. We want him with my dad. And so we need answers. And that's coming because things are happening, moving forward quickly now. So thank you so much, and stay tuned and say a lot of prayers. God bless y'all, and I will see you, God willing,